If you see one in the sky, if you see one manifest before your very eyes, if you see a strange creature lurking outside, then tell it on accounts of the paranormal. Hear it on accounts of the paranormal. Welcome to accounts of the paranormal.
Welcome to the show. Tonight, I welcome back Paul Howard, who comes to us from just south of London, England, continuing our conversation, sharing his experiences with the ghosts of England. Paul, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me back again. Thank you for that.
I appreciate having you here again. When we talked last, I felt like we were just getting into it and there's still more to cover. We were talking with Jenny and her experiences and how you guys met, which is kind of cool. Let's get right back into it. What else is going on in that home there?
It's probably about a month ago now. I was just got home from work because I ride a motorbike backwards and forwards to work. So I just got home and sort of as I was driving down the drive, I noticed the car was missing. So Jenny was out. I'm thinking, oh, Jen must be out then. So I parked the bike up, come walking up to the front door, put the key in the front door. And as I looked up, I saw what looked like someone walking from left to right from the bedroom across to the kitchen. I thought, well, Jen's not there. Somebody's got a broke in. So I jumped over the fence, looked in the kitchen and couldn't see anybody. So quickly opened the door and rushed in. And I couldn't see anybody in here. But I saw a figure walk from left to right. So from the bedroom, across the hallway and into the kitchen. And literally, and I looked up and thought, well, Jen's not here. So there's got to be someone else in there. Sort of, I'd say, looked in the kitchen window, rushed in. And obviously no one here. And I thought, oh, well, they're back again. Spirit here again. But I definitely saw like a dark figure walk from left to right across the hallway. So, we often have that. We could sit here and hear conversations and various things happen here, but it doesn't scare us because they're not here to harm us or any like that. They interact, they come and go, like the lady that lived here that sadly passed here. Why shouldn't she come back and have a look? It was her home. She had a good part of her life here. So, we don't feel threatened. We don't feel scared. Sometimes we hear a knock or a bang and sort of think, oh, they're back again. Jen's seen a few shadows here. And I was decorating the bathroom once, and I was standing in the bathroom, working away, painting the wall. And then I looked in the mirror, and what I could see was like a black shape standing behind me. And I thought it was Jen going to make me jump, sort of grab me. And I went, oh, very clever, very good. And as I looked around, there was nobody there. But I saw the shape behind me. And I said, Jen, are you in the bathroom? She went, no, I'm in the lounge. And I went, are you sure? You haven't been in it? No, she said, I've been here all the time. And we think that might have been Jenny's father come to see what we were doing. Jen hadn't had a very good relationship with her father, but we're sure it was him because the height was about 5'5", 5'6". But I was sort of standing and I looked in the mirror and I could see the shape behind me. So I was sort of a bit blown away by that. But we do see shadows, don't we? And taps. And we decided, like a lot of your listeners might say, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. But we decided to have... It's all right, somebody just moved on the table then. All right. Okay. So we decided... somebody just moved across the table. Yeah. You might pick it up in your audio, I'm not sure. Anyway, so we decided to use the Ouija board here. Although people say you shouldn't use it in your own home, but we've been, we're both psychic mediums, so we know what we're doing and we know the risks, and we do ground ourselves and we do all the protection. The Archangel Michael to protect us in the light. So as we're on the board and Jen's asked the question, Dad, was that you that was here? And the glass went straight to yes. Was it you standing behind Paul? Yes. So it confirmed that it was him that was standing behind me. And he had a few bits because we asked him, or obviously I didn't know Jen's dad at that time, and Jen asked the board a few odd questions to see whether he would know the answer, and the answers were spot on. And his closing message was, "I really like him," was his closing message on the board, meaning he really likes me.
Gasp.
Good for you. Lucky for you, I should say. There's so much activity there. Have you guys done like any investigations there, like in the home, like at night? Have you ever walked around with recorders or tried to pick up on any sounds? I mean, it just sounds like that place is so active that you could definitely do investigations. And
Oh yeah, I have my voice recorder. I go everywhere with every investigation. I have my voice recorder, whether we're out and about, or if we go to a church to have a look around, because we've got some beautiful churches here in the UK, and I often bring it with me and I just record us walking around. And we have had the recorder go here at night. We get lots of orbs, if you believe in orbs, a manifestation and spirit move. A lot of people don't believe in them, which is fair enough. But we have lots of orbs passing through. And we've had conversations on the voice recorder. You could hear like two men. Because one night I was fast asleep in bed and I thought I heard two men having a conversation. And I thought, who's that? And I suddenly got up, and this was about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I was sat still, and I was I'm a very light sleeper, so I don't sleep very deeply. And I thought, there's someone talking, there's two men talking. And I thought there was someone outside because we have like a communal garden. And I thought, why would they be outside talking at this time of night? So I've looked out the curtains, there was nobody there. And the outside, we have PIR lights that trigger on if there's movement. They were off. And I thought, well, there can't be someone moving around. So as I came into the lounge, I heard the voices stop. And then I sort of walked around and looked out the front door, sort of looked up the path and went back outside and had a look out the back. Couldn't see anything or anyone around. It was just deadly quiet. So I just went back to bed and thought, oh, well, obviously spirit having a conversation about something. So, and then that was it, really.
Yeah, I've heard it as well.
And Jen's heard it a few times in the early hour.
Yeah.
Because sometimes Jen can't sleep very well, so she gets up. And then, she can hear spirit talking while she's sort of in a bit sort of a low state of sleep in a chair because she suffers with her back. So that keeps her awake some nights, and she can hear spirit talking, and you can sometimes hear them.
And I saw that apparition, didn't I?
And
but I thought you were getting up, and
I
was in the toilet. I thought, oh, I can hear you getting up, and next minute I see this white thing come along, thinking it was you, and you were still in bed.
And that's because Jen was in a chair looking into the hallway.
No, I was in the toilet.
In the toilet, and she thought I was coming. Got up to go to the toilet and saw a white thing pass sort of in the hallway. So she thought it was me, and then sort of got up.
You didn't appear.
And I didn't appear. And she's like, right, okay. So she's getting a little bit scared. So she finished what she was doing and then came back to bed. It didn't tell me till the morning that what had happened. So it sort of not scared her, but sort of just made her put her at unease, because she'd seen something move, but hadn't. She thought it was me coming into the bathroom, and it wasn't. It didn't appear. So whatever it was or whoever it was sort of disappeared out of the portal and gone. So we get odd things like that happen.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Have you ever had guests in the home, and have those guests ever experienced anything, whether it just be sounds or noises, anything like that?
Oh, we've had the grandchildren stay here, and they sleep over often. And they're very susceptible to spirit, the grandchildren, like all children are. But they've never woke up, come in, said there's someone in the room, or we've heard someone. They've never woke us to say that they were scared. We asked them all now, how did you sleep? Did you sleep okay? And, was there any noises? And no, we slept really well, thank you. And we've never had an adult. We had Jen's daughter stay here one night when she was very unwell because her partner was busy with the two girls. So she stayed with us. And yet she never heard anything or had any experiences like we have. And, we have spoken to her about our experiences here. And she's sort of stayed here and said, well, I didn't hear anything, see anything, or feel uneasy. And people come in and say, what a beautiful energy the house has. It's so lovely and warm and welcoming. So we know there's nothing negative here. It's just spirit being nosy or going about their business in the house. They come and go. They don't cause us any issues.
And you had mentioned the beautiful churches of that great country there. I guess what famous places or churches have you ever visited, or even had been fortunate enough to do any kind of investigation where you might have caught something? Is there anywhere like within London? I know you're outside of London, but anywhere that you can talk about?
Yeah, I mean, there's a church just up the road from us. It's a Commonwealth church, so it has soldiers buried in it from the First, Second World War, sailors, RAF, army. So it has a very famous inventor buried there as well, because obviously we live on Churchill Close, but it's called Church Road. The whole of these grounds where we live was obviously part of the church grounds. So the very famous inventor, was a guy called Dr. Swan, Professor Swan, his name. And we kept seeing his tomb there and thinking, well, that's a really strange name. So when we investigated through, never got a voice or anything from it, but when we Googled it and checked up on him, he was the first person to invent the incandescent light bulb. But he never had the money to patent it, and so he gave his invention to Watt, who then invented the light bulb. But Professor Swan was the first person to produce the light bulb, so we find that really interesting. Anyway, I was down there one night, as again, like you do, as an always investigator, you've got your voice recorder with you. So I'm walking the dog down there, Poppy, and we're walking through the graveyard. I think Jen was out doing readings or something. So I'm walking down the graveyard. It's about 8:30, so it's got dark, and we'll sort of walk around the side of the church. People say, "Oh, you mad walking in a graveyard at night?" But I find them peaceful. People are at rest, aren't they? So, and I remember sort of walking there having the voice recorders. Anybody here? Anybody who'd like to talk to me? I'm not here to do you any harm. And I thought I didn't hear anything at the time. And I said to Poppy, "Oh, come on then, we'll walk round." We walked all round the graveyard and back out. When I got back home, I thought I'll play the voice recording, see if we picked up anything. And sort of 10, 15 minutes, you hear me say, "Is there anybody here? Could you talk to me? Is there any form of communication?" And in the background, you could hear like children shouting and then a voice going, "Oi, oi," like that. And I thought, well, there's nobody in the graveyard. There was no children at that time of night. So I played it back and I said, Jen, listen to this. And, there wouldn't have been children playing in the area of the church or around that area anyway. So when I Googled it back to see about this area, so during the Second World War, because of the church had been here so long, the Germans used to use the church spire to turn, as they flew over Croydon and Wallingham, which is where we are, they would see the church spire and turn left, which would take them above Croydon and into central London. So the bombers would come over the Germans and then they would turn left at the spire and then they knew that they were heading into central London. So a lot of the children during the war around this area were evacuated to the church because of the crypts, so they could get underground when the bombings was dropped, because a lot of this area, when the Germans bombed London and they had bombs that they hadn't dropped, they used to just drop them in the home counties, as we call them. They just drop their payloads so they could get enough fuel to get home. And what they used to do was to round the children up that were playing in the graveyard and all around the church. They would shout out, "Oi, oi," at the top of their voice, and the children knew they had to get in and get underground. And that's exactly what I caught on the recording, which is mind-blowing.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a previous guest that had investigated at some of the battlegrounds, here in the States, catching very, very familiar sounds that are 100% related to the battles, so that totally makes sense.
That's amazing. It's brilliant when you catch it, because you then, the researcher in you comes out, doesn't he? You've got to search. I heard, although I didn't hear it audibly in my own, but the EVP picked it up, the recorder picked it up, And I thought, I've got to find out why they were shouting, why you would have had children. And then sure enough, Wallingham Church was used as a bomb shelter for the children in this area. So it made sense.
Yeah, and it's just sad too when you tie that all together and you recognize the origins of that and where that's from and why it left the impression that it left, that all these decades later we're still hearing that. It really lends to the fact of what an incredible moment that might have been for that individual to leave that imprint.
Yeah, scary, traumatic, maybe. A lot of traumatic stuff you get is energy left behind because it's such a traumatic time. Maybe that's what we were hearing, because the children would have been so scared because the Germans were dropping bombs all over this area, because obviously we lived near an RAF field as well, where the Spitfires would have been for the Battle of Britain. So they were trying to bomb all this area as well as London. So it would have been quite terrifying, this area, during the war.
Absolutely. Just like that child tugging on your shirt, it's kind of the same thing. It just lends to that moment in time, and the fear and the emotion, just how powerful that was for that person, that today, all these decades later, and you're feeling it, and you felt it in that tunnel. Crazy. But amazing. And if you can take it and you're not too scared, absolutely. What an incredible experience.
I find it very humbling that Spirit allowed me to hear this and, feel it and see it. And I find it quite humbling that they give me the honour to hear it.
You recently investigated Fort Brockhurst, we had mentioned. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we're part of the English Heritage as their exclusive paranormal group, if you want. We've been trying for a long time to get into there, because they're very picky who they have in their historic buildings, but obviously because they're trying to keep, because if you lose your history, you lose everything, because it's not the same as having history on a bit of paper as it is to go into the building. Same as out in the States, if you can go to Gettysburg, and you imagine if they built a housing estate over it, you'd lost all that huge part of history, and you can't get that back. That's gone. So the English Heritage are a charity that keep the forts, castles, palaces. They keep them alive, but they're a charity that need funding. So they approached us, and we approached them, saying, would we do a charity paranormal evening for them on Halloween? So we said, yeah, we'd be very honoured to do that. Of course we would, and we're, as a non-profitable group, we give back everything. 100% of the ticket sales go back to the English Heritage, so to help fund, keeping history alive. Basically, that's how we feel. So we turned up on the night of Halloween, and they had the fort open all day because they had a free event for children there, a Halloween event where they could go around the fort and see different parts of history. They had mannequins dressed up as soldiers, and so the children could see different part of history and how the forts were used during history time, during the Napoleonic War, where they would house French soldiers. So they were a very big part of a fallback plan if we ever got invaded. To drop back. And if you have a look in history, the forts in Portsmouth, Hampshire, go right across from one side of the county to the other. So there's like a string of forts all together. There's Pembroke, Nelson, Brockhurst, Widley, and a couple of others. And they were like a fallback event if we were ever to be overrun. And they would have used them during the Second World War as well. So if Germany had invaded, they had somewhere to fall back to defend. So they invited us there. We went there on the night. It was a bit drizzly, so we put laser grids, which are a dotted matrix, around the doors, so it sort of added to that spooky effect as you walked into the fort. So everybody that came, all the guests that came, never been there before. The fort had never been opened up before to a paranormal night. So we were very honoured to be allowed to hold a paranormal night there. So we then split into two groups. So we had two smaller groups. So, with smaller groups, you get more activity, more stuff going on. So we thought, well, that's a good idea. Obviously, the English Heritage had two ladies on site that were watching us to make sure that we were respectful, and which we are. We're always respectful for wherever location we are. We're respectful to spirit, and we're respectful to the location and the people within it. So we were split into our two groups. Myself went off with about 7 or 8 people, and I had Jenny with me. Obviously, Jenny can't walk that far because of her bad back, so she tries to get around as much as she can with us. And the other group was with our lead investigator, Dora and Angela. So, and we have an historian, but she was not available on the night, who does a lot of our history checking, after the event. We don't history check before, we history check after the event. So if we get stuff, we can verify it after and not before. Because sometimes if people check history before you go, you say, oh, I've got so-and-so known for where you've read that. So it's a bit of a suggestive thing. But we do our research out after, a week later, after we've gone through the evidence. So in my group, we went to a little room just in the keep, just above on the moat, where the strangest thing on the voice recorder, we could hear running water in the room. But there is no running water at Fort Brockhurst. There would have been a pump in the middle of the fort to pump the natural spring. But the pump's gone and they've concreted over it, but the natural spring is still there. But we were probably 500, 600 metres from where the hole would have been. But we could literally hear running water on the voice recorder. And then we heard like a dragging, a scraping noise, a tapping. So it was quite active. And with these places that have not been done before, it's like, you're asking spirit to join with you, connect with you. But you have to remember, spirit need to look at you first, see whether you're good energy, bad energy, should they connect. As much as we're trying to connect with them, they want to see whether we're all right. So we went down. So what the lady said we'll do is uncover all the original cannons in the fort. So the whole room was full of these old-fashioned cannons, which was brilliant because we put cat balls, which are flashing LED balls, on there, and they're movement sensitive. So if anything moves and they start flashing, then we call them cat balls here. I'm not sure what they call them in United States, but we call them cat balls. They're LED round balls.
Yeah, it's the same here. It's the cat balls, toys for the cats.
That's it. Exactly, yeah. So we had a couple of them on the cannons, some on the floor, and we had a REM pod as well up by one of the doors. Bearing in mind, this is a Napoleonic fort, and this thing is huge, this fort. It's one of the biggest forts I've been in, and I've been in a couple in the Portsmouth area, but this is huge. It would hold over 2,000 soldiers. That's how big this fort was. So it was just huge. So the REM pod we had going off, to command, can you make the noise? Deep. It was going, and cat balls were going. And as we looked sort of towards the end of the fort, it sort of turns a bit of a corner as it goes round in the keep. There's 2 slits where they would have looked out to shoot, and below the slits were the moat that went around the fort. And all of us saw at the same time, like a black shadow walk across the windows, because the windows disappeared and then came back, but it was going backwards and forwards. And we're saying, I'm trying to do a voice recording. We had a little child calling, and one of our guests had a little child touch them on the back of the leg, which obviously made them jump. So everybody jumps at the same time because they shout out. But we asked the shadow down the bottom, would they come closer to us? Obviously, they never. And then, can you flash the cat ball or touch the REM pod for yes? And so, can you show us your yes? Is what our first question was. And the cat ball would flash. And can you show us your no? And the REM pod would go off. So we had 2 different devices. And we sort of asked out, are you a soldier? And the cat ball would flash for the yes. Thought, okay. Will you come closer to us? And the REM pod, no. Are you on patrol? Yes. Can you tell us your name? No. And it was really interacting like that. But obviously we couldn't get closer to it, or it wouldn't come closer to us. I think it was trying to suss us out as much as we were trying to suss it out. So, we had a real good contact there. And right on the other side of the fort was Dora and Angela doing an investigation there with another group. And they were in a hall, calling out in the hall. So, and then they moved from the hall because they'd had a few taps, but nothing majorly happened. And they went to the prison cells. So they had prison cells there that would have held French prisoners during the Napoleonic War, where if we'd have sunk a ship, they would have got the crew and took them back to Fort Brockhurst or Fort Nelson or Rona. So they would have been locked away in there. So anyway, they had a clear, can you knock? Can you let us know you're here? And we have it on the voice recording. Can you make some sort of noise to tell us that you're here? And distinctively you heard knock, 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 real loud knock, 3 knocks, which was really interesting because they were in a completely different room to where the knocks came from. So, and that was really good. So anyway, halfway through we had a cup of tea, a bit of a break, and they had a few bits, and we swapped over. We went to the prison cells and the rooms around the cells, and they went to the cannon room. So they had a similar sort of experience to we had, cat balls, and they had. Do you know? I'm not sure if you know. The plasma balls that have the lightning inside the glass balls.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so they had one of them because we said, we'll try the plasma ball and see whether we can get anything from it. So you know how the lightning inside is always busy going on, and the plasma ball stops like someone put the hand on it. So you get 2 or 3 like lightning bolts, but they're solid and they move. So in the video, as they were videoing it, they took it away and it was back to its normal. Put it back down again. So can you do that again? And sure enough, it was like 3 direct strikes on the glass, solid strikes, not buzzing away, but solid. They changed the batteries as well, put it in a different place, and it did exactly the same thing. So they laid a K2 EMF meter by the side of it to see whether there was a cabling or something in the fault, but there was no lights. And the EMF meter didn't pick anything up. It just stayed at green. So that was really intriguing to see that the plasma ball had gone solid. So it had a contact with the glass. So over on the prison cells, we went into the room just off the prison cell, which would have been like a guard room. So we're standing there calling out, is any spirits here? Can you please come and communicate with us? We mean you no harm. And all the stuff we do, show respect for spirit. And we stand there, we could hear what sounded like someone walking in the room, but it was a very quick dunk, 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 like footsteps. And we're all standing still because I'm looking at everybody, and we're all in a group, sort of quite tight group. So I know somebody's not moving around. And then the first time I'd ever experienced this is that we were standing on the floor, and the floor was actually bouncing, but nobody was moving. It was like something heavy or someone heavy was walking across the floor because the actual floor was bouncing. And we all looked at each other and went, what is going on? Why is this floor moving? And I sort of shone the torch, and obviously there was nobody there. We were all stood still, but the floor was still moving. Like something or someone really heavily built was walking across the floor towards us. We never heard footsteps. We just felt the bounce in the floor. So that sort of really intrigued us. So from there we went into the corridor and out to cell 2. So we're standing in cell 2, looking out into the corridor that's sort of shaped in a U shape. So we're looking in a corridor. There's me, a couple of other, and Jenny was there with me. And then Jen said, you know what? I get a feeling they have French prisoners here. So Jen can speak a bit of French. So she spoke French. Parlez-vous français, she said. And then suddenly, in the hallway, we saw this real dull amber light in the hallway. And we're like, look at each other going, who's out there then? So I walked out of the cell and looked in the hallway. There was nobody there. I'm thinking, well, everybody, they're on the other side of the fault. We're on the only ones this side. And it was a very dull amber light, nothing like the torches or phone light or anything we have now. So he said, if that's you, Spirit, can you do that again? Thank you for doing that. That's brilliant, And sure enough, the light was there again. We're like, what? So I said, right, it's got to be somebody outside. Like, you try and debunk it. You do all you go through, you check everything. I looked up and down the hallway, couldn't see anybody. So I went out the door, looked in the yard, nobody about at all. And said, well, that's strange. We all saw it at the same time. Anyway, as I came in, I started to walk down the hallway towards cell 2. And as I looked up, because I'm looking at the ground where I'm going, I looked up and I saw this black shadow of a man with a tall hat walking past cell 2. And in front of him, I could see this dull amber light, like bouncing as he was walking along. And I sort of shone my torch, and split second, he'd gone. But I know what I saw in the darkness. And the amber light, when we spoke to one of the tour guides, or his England lady, around about 12:30, 1 o'clock in the early hours of the morning, they would have had the warder walk down the corridor, and he would have had a lamp with a candle in it, like a hurricane lamp. And what you probably saw was him as he was walking, the lamp moving down the corridor, and I saw the black shadow and this tall hat, and I could see the amber light either side of the wall walking down there. So I sort of went into the cell and said, "Did you see that?" And they went, "We saw the light, but we didn't see anything. But I saw the shape of him in the dark with this tall, it's probably about 6 foot tall, quite a tall hat on. Couldn't see any definition like a gun or belt or nothing like that because they used to wear slightly small cape around the top of their jackets. But I couldn't see any of that. But I saw the shape of the hat. He was he would have been about 6 foot, if not bigger. And she said that the wardens would have been that sort of height, but they would have walked down the corridors with candles in their lanterns, making sure that everybody was shut in for the night, all the prisoners. So that was a really, really interesting night. And then we all sort of got back together as one big group and went back to where the cannons were, where we had in the background on the recording, you can hear a door slam, all sorts of things. It was active, audibly active, but not active as in the sense of seeing things move. But it was a real, real great night. And we've gone back over the voice recordings. And in one stage, you can hear me say, "Can you make a noise? Can you do something?" And you hear this real deep laugh. Just as I finished the sentence, we picked it up on the voice recorder. So, really intriguing place. Very, very intriguing place. We have been asked to go back there, as well as some other places. So
I would jump to that opportunity. That place sounds incredibly active. You mentioned something very interesting, the plasma ball.
yes,
I've watched a lot of paranormal shows. I've seen a lot of investigations, and I don't know if I recall seeing anyone utilize one of those in an investigation. That's very, very unique. Like the cat balls, a lot of investigators use those, but
yeah.
the plasma ball, very cool to use that.
But what you have to remember is the plasma ball's giving off energy, the spirit light energy, to be able to do things, to connect. Like they use our energy as humans, because we're all energy, aren't we, at the end of the day? And we thought, if we use a plasma ball, I'm thinking here one night, the plasma ball's giving off energy through the globe. You're touching it, you're creating a circuit. So it's giving off, even though the EMF meter, the K2, whatever you want to call it, didn't pick up any energy fluctuation, but they actually stopped solid. Like someone had got, like, if you imagine 3 or 4 fingers on the globe, so there was 3 or 4 solid bits of light going to what I would have said was someone touching it. When you touch it, you get that solid piece of light. But it was like 3 or 4 fingers were actually on it. There's 3 or 4 different solid strikes, which was brilliant. We loved it. We thought it was such a clever idea. I could send you over the video of it so you can see yourself. If you give me a link to where I can send it, and I'll send it over, and you can have a look. I mean, we're open to comments. We always ask people, what do you think? We accept criticism, we accept comments, but we sort of sat there and we were a bit mind blown by it, because when we moved it to a different area, it went back to normal. Then we moved it back there and called out again. It was like normal, and then suddenly, dunk, it went solid again. So we thought it can't be the area. So we were really intrigued by that. So we were glad that it was, an idea that actually worked. We didn't know if it would work or not. We just thought we'd take it along anyway, because I have one here. We'll take it along and try it. And I have like an interactive robot, a gesture control robot you can put on the floor. And we use that as a trigger object when we're in a house, spirits with children and things like that. And it's a robot that if you go near it, backs away from you. So it's what they call gesture control. So if you talk to it, it goes, uh-oh, and it backs away from you as you try to get closer to it. So we tend to use it, a bit like the plasma ball, as a go-to. So if we're in a house or a hall or a building that's got spirits of children, and they see the robot because it's all different colours. And often when you leave the robot on the floor and it's quiet, it's like a self-balancing one, so it balances itself. And then you hear it go, uh-oh, and everybody's standing still, and the robot starts to back away. And as spirit turn their back or walk away from it, it follows them. And you can see it moving around the room as it's following them around the room. Brilliant piece of equipment. we try all sorts.
What a fantastic idea. I mean, just like the plasma ball, you're coming up with some more original and creative ways to do these investigations. And I love that. Those are really unique tools that, like I said, I haven't heard anyone utilizing that. It's certainly not a robot. That's really awesome. This fort, just geographically, it's on the very southern part of the country, right? And on the southern coast. Am I picturing it right?
Correct, yes. It's in a place called Hampshire, Portsmouth, Hampshire. Where you have Portsmouth, Southampton, Gosport, and they're all on the coast in the south of England. So they're all on the coast. So you have like 5, 6, 7 forts stretched across from one side of the county to the other. So from one side of the sea right across to the other side of the sea, because Portsmouth, Southampton was a very, very busy port during the Napoleonic War, because it was one of the deepest ports to take the big ships in. And during the Second World War, it was one of the heaviest bombed ports because it's the closest part to France. So the Germans were bombing it to be able to do a craft landing. So, it has a massive history in the south of England. It has what we call the D-Day tunnels, where Winston Churchill, was directing the D-Day landings from there. And it has all these forts from the Napoleonic War stretched from one coast to the other side of the coast. But yeah, you're right. It's in the south of England. It's in a county called Hampshire. So you have Gosport, Portsmouth, Southampton, and all, the Isle of Wight, which is an island just off the coast of the United Kingdom. Obviously, it's part of our United Kingdom, but they all have had forts forts to defend the port during the wars.
Yeah, so much history. I really look forward to the day that I can get out to your country and just take in all those sites and visit all these incredible places. What's next for you for future investigations? Where would you like to investigate?
For us, we do a lot of private investigation into houses and various things like that. We have a meeting with the English Heritage coming up about them opening other forts and castles and palaces for us to investigate, to take VIP guests along. Obviously, it's to raise money for the charity of the English Heritage. So we're waiting to have a meeting, which is in the next few days, I think, with them to see. Obviously, we're going back to Fort Brockhurst again, because I think there's a lot more to come from Fort Brockhurst, because according to the history, the lady was telling us that had a couple of bombs dropped on there during the Second World War, killed about 100 soldiers. So, and they say that they have seen people walking across a parade ground. So, that holds another form of investigation for us to be outside, investigating outside, because obviously the energy outside is just as good as the energy inside, because there would have been soldiers outside the fort as well as inside the fort and in the middle and in the parade ground. So they've asked us to go back there to do Fort Brockhurst. So we're looking to have an investigation in the three other forts that they hold the keys for. A castle, a place called Porchester Castle, which is one of the most haunted castles in the south of England. So we're looking to get into there because it's owned by the English Heritage. You can't go there. They had the keys. They lock up at 5 o'clock at night, and that's it. You're not allowed there after dark. But we will have permission to go there to run a paranormal event for them at the castle. They have a few abbeys with ruins from the 14th century, which is one of our go-to abbeys that we go to. So we're really looking forward to getting into the meeting with them, because not only do they do the south of England, they're in the Midlands and up north. So, if we've done all right, they're so pleased with how we've handled the night, because obviously a lot of the mannequins there have original jackets and guns and swords and all the things that they found around the fort and in the moat, and we have a lot of respect for spirit, like we do as a team, and we asked our guests to have respect for where they are, what they're doing, don't touch. You're welcome to have a look, but don't touch. Um, as I say, we come with spirit with the utmost respect. We say please and thank you. And when we leave the venue, we say, any spirits of the venue, you're to stay here. You're not to come home with us. This is your home and this is where you stay. And we've never had any issue with anybody having attachments. But we're looking forward to the meeting in the next few days, a week or so. It's a few days or a week, I'm not sure. Next week, I think, to what they're going to open up for us next. So hopefully, we would love to do a castle and a palace, because the castle's obviously Porchester Castle is a huge castle that's very famous down in the south of England for hauntings. They have ghost walks there, where someone from English Heritage walks people around and talks about the ghosts of the Porchester Castle and the palaces and all of that sort of thing. So they have ghost walks. But now we've got in with Fort Brockhurst, they're a lot more open to us because we have exclusivity to their events only. So we feel very honoured that they chose us out of any to host their events for them. So that's our up and coming events list, really. When obviously now it will stretch into the new year, we may be able to squeeze. Maybe she did say to us that we could take a group of 4 or 5 of us back to Fort Brockhurst one evening and spend 4 or 5 hours there on our own without anybody else. So we may well squeeze that in just before Christmas. If not, it will be in the new year now. Obviously, we're doing a couple of we're doing a filming for a company up in the Midlands the next few weeks for a TV program. What else we got? I got a podcast coming up in the next couple of weeks for another group. They've contacted me to go on there. Another podcast for a guy called Ian Hideous, who does the Dark Shadow Paranormal, and he does a podcast up in northern part of England. So we're going up there to do a recording for him one evening. So we are busy with what we do.
Yeah, you've got a lot on your plate. How exciting. And I'm excited for you to get back to Brockhurst and to more forts and castles. Man, you just talking about it, that's so I get excited just the idea of that, being able to have the privilege to go to these amazing places and do those investigations. And I love how you emphasize going in with the respect that you do. That is really important. And I'm sure the English Heritage recognizes that. And that's why they're giving you this awesome privilege to go and investigate these places.
Absolutely.
But when you do, when you got another investigation or whenever you want to come back and talk about your newest and latest findings, you know how to reach me. I can't wait to hear about your future investigations and what you might find. But I can't thank you enough for coming on, Paul, and sharing about your life and your years and what you've experienced. And Jenny as well, thank you for chiming in and chatting with me.
Can I give you just one quick story before you go? This will blow your mind, this story.
Go ahead.
Have you got time to hear? Honestly, this will blow your mind, and then your listeners can work out from this experience. So a friend of mine, I'll sort of shorten it down. A friend of mine, he walks on the moors a lot. He takes a lot of pictures of wildlife and birds, and we touched briefly on it before about time travel or time slips.
Oh yes, I totally forgot. I wanted to get into that whole story of the time travel, and you had so much else to talk about. We completely missed that. But yes, go ahead.
No, that's fine. So anyway, he decided he was going to go to Yorkshire, which is a massive moors area in the Midlands here. So he decided, a friend of his said, well, you can stay in my bungalow, my cottage, and gave him the keys. So off he went on a Friday night, drove to the cottage, got to the cottage and sort of late Friday night after work, set up. And so Saturday morning he went off for a walk across the moors, taking pictures of the moors, and fantastic for a photographer. Absolutely fantastic pictures. Bit of a loner guy, but I've known him for 30 odd years. So anyway, come Saturday evening, he thought, I know what I'll do. I'll go to the local village and have a pint. So he's got in his car, drove out the cottage, down this country road, come to a T-junction, and he came to a place called Craven, which was a village in Yorkshire. So he sort of stopped at the T-junction, thought, oh, there's a pub. So turned left, then turned the left again into the car park, but the car park was 2 stages. So he drove in and parked on the lower level, walked back down, came round the front of the pub, opened the door and walked into the pub. So as he walked in, there was a barman standing right down the end looking at the door. He's like, well, that's a bit of a strange welcome. Never said hello, good evening, nothing. And he remembers it being dully lit inside the pub, not very bright. So anyway, he's walked up to the bar. The barman's like looking straight for him at the door, and he's like, well, this is a bit odd. So he said to the barman, oh, I'll have one of them. So the barman pours out this pint of beer, bitter, puts it on the top. My mate gives him a £5 note. So he opens a wooden till, puts the £5 note away, shuts the till, and he's like, was there no change? Well, I won't pursue it. I'll just leave it. So he turned round, went and sat down. He described it as about 5 or 6 tables in a horseshoe shape around the bar. So he sat down in one and started to read the paper. Thought, well, there's not many people here. So he thought, I know, I'll put some music on. So the barman's still standing with his arms crossed looking at the front door. And it's like, what? So anyway, he goes up towards the one-armed bandit, like a fruit machine. And the barman said, doesn't work. So, okay, I'll put some music on. Doesn't work. And the split second, he sort of came back down, finished his pint. And he thought, oh, well, I'll get one more and then I'll drive back. So he'd gone to the barman, oh, I'll try a pint of that. So the barman's poured this pint out, put it up on the top of the bar. He's given him another £5 note. So the barman's opened the wooden till, put it in there. And the split second, he heard the front door go at the pub. And he's thinking, thank goodness people have turned up. When he turns round, there's about 20 people sitting in the seats. And the drinks were already on the table. So he thought, well, what's going on here then? And he described them as in like 1930s dress code. So he sat at the table, like looking at his paper. Nobody was talking. They were just looking into like nowhere. And the drinks were all half drunk. And he's thinking, what's going on here? So nobody's looking. The barman's still looking at the front door. And he thinks, you know what? That's enough for me. Something's not right. So he quickly drinks his beer. He goes along towards the bar because he needs to go to the loo. So the loo is outside of the pub. So as he opens the back door of the pub, this dog like rah, 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 starts to bark at him and really sort of makes him jump. He thinks, oh, I'll wait. So he shuts the door, walks down the bar, and halfway down he looks up as he's walking out, and the front door shuts and all these people are gone. So he thinks, well, that's not very nice. They didn't even hold the door open for me. So he opens the door literally seconds behind, and there is nobody out there. They're gone. So he thinks no more. He thinks, oh, what? Got in his car, drove back to the cottage, couldn't sleep all night, thinking about what had happened. He thought, right, I'm going to go back there and find out what's gone on. So he gets up in the morning, has his breakfast, drives all the way back down, same place. There's a paper shop and a bakery opposite. Sure enough, there's the pub. So he turns left again into the car park of the pub, walks down to the high street, goes to go in the pub, and it's all boarded up, like wood across the doors and all that. And he's like, what? So he goes back to the car and checks that he's in the right area. Sure enough, he's in the village of Craven. So next door, he can hear a radio going. So he walks along and there's a guy working on a car in a garage next door to the pub. So he sort of says to the guy in there, you all right, mate? And how long's the pub been shut then? He said, why do you need to know that? He said, oh, just doing a local history search, and I came across, just wanted to know. He said, it's been shut about 80 years. He's like, right, okay, thank you. Got back into his car, drove all the way home thinking about this. Anyway, he hadn't told anybody for about a year because he thinks people are going to think I'm mad. So he knew then I was into the paranormal because I was still studying at the university then. So he told his brother, and his brother said, well, I'll go back there with his wife. He said, I won't go back. He said, I'm not going back there because I don't know what happened. So his brother drove back down. About a year later, pulled up the same car park, 2 levels, walked into the pub. It's like a modern day pub. There's lots of people in there, music going, quite a modern pub. He's thinking, what's he on about? It's like it's never been shut. goes to the bar, orders a couple of cocktails, a couple of beers. A couple of times he's ordered a beer, like puts the change in his pocket. Anyway, they drive home back to the same cottage that he used. So as they went to go to bed, he put the change out of his pocket of his trousers on the bedside cabinet. And he thinks, well, that's a strange looking penny. So he has a look, and it's a 1930s penny in his change, which is sort of blown his mind because that's what his brother described his people as in the 1930s type dress. So he contacted me. He said, if I tell you a story, can you sort of help me with it? Because I just can't get to grips with it. So he told me the story. So I said, oh, I know what we do. We'll ring up the local church because they'll always have files on about the village. So I rung up this church, and this was called, the pub was called Craven in Heifer, which heifer is a cow here in England. So I rang the church out and said to them, I'm inquiring about the pub across the road, the Craven. And they said, why? I said, I'm doing a study in university on history of local Sheffield. And they said, you don't need to know. Put the phone down on me. And I'm like, right, that's not very good from a church. So anyway, I spent a few months digging around, and I found out in 1930, it was a mining village. Craven was a mining village. And there was a shift that came off, which was men and women. And they were walking along the road to the pub, and the road collapsed. They had a fall. So the mine collapsed and brought the road down, and 20 people were killed in the fall. And we reckon they are the 20 people he saw in the pub, because that's where they should have been when the road fell. So there you go. That's a good one for your listeners.
To say the least, that's an incredible story. Wow.
Absolutely.
I don't even know.
True story as well.
That's incredible. What's the name of you said Craven? Is that the village that this is located, this pub?
The village was called Craven in Heifer. Heifer being an English cow. And the pub was called the Craven. So recently, a couple of years ago, I sort of thought I'd do a bit more history checking now. I've had a bit more experience in the paranormal, and I know where to go onto the sensors, where people are. And the whole village has changed its name. So I had to work that one out.
Yeah, I'm going to look that up. Are you aware of this story documented anywhere?
No, the only documentation was that I found on the census, the 1930 census that we have, where they have people that are buried and all of that on what we call the census. And there was 20 people were killed in what they call was a mine collapse. So it swallowed the road or the path that they were walking along to go to the pub, because they would have met in the pub as it was the centre of the village. So everybody would have met there after a shift or before the shift or whatever. And apparently the mine collapsed and swallowed the road and swallowed them with it.
Yeah, that's a sad story, but what an incredible experience and an incredible story. I'm definitely going to look that up. That is fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. That's what a way to go out.
Yeah, go out with a bang. That's what I'd say.
For sure. We just did. So, Paul, thank you again. I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your experiences and these stories. And I look forward to hearing from you again on your future investigations. Thank you so much.
And thank you for having us on there. It's been enjoyable. We enjoyed it. So I hope your listeners enjoyed the stories and from the UK across the pond. So we have lots of stories. So new investigations coming up. So thank you for inviting us onto your show. We've really enjoyed it. I'm very honoured.
Of course. And where can people find you if someone wants to look you up or get in touch?
Yeah, we have a website called, if you go to www.hostsforghostsparanormal.com, all in one word, and then that'll take you onto our website where there's 3 lines, and you can go on the line, and it's like a blog. You click on the blog, and that tells you the investigations that we've done, where we've been. Obviously, we're just having the website rebuilt, so we're having a completely new website rebuilt. So the old one still works. So go on there, have a look. I often put on there where we're going next, and it's got lots of investigations and all haunted locations in Surrey and Hampshire and all around the area. Obviously on Facebook, we're on there as Host for Ghosts Paranormal, and also Paul Howard at Host for Ghosts. So pop on there, give me a shout, or come and see what we're up to, because we're always putting new venues on there. So that's how your listeners can get hold of us. Or if anybody wants to talk to us about anything, you're more than welcome to contact us. It would be a pleasure to talk to someone.
Awesome. Thank you. And I will put those links in the show notes as well. Certainly the hostsforghostsparanormal.com, and any other links you want to send me, I'll be happy to add to the show notes as well. Thank you again, Paul and Jenny, for coming on. I appreciate it, and I hope to hear from you soon.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. I appreciate you being here. If you have an account to share and would like to be on the show, email me at show@accountsoftheparanormal.com and tell me what you saw. You can catch this show wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as our website, accountsoftheparanormal.com, where you can access full episodes and links to all our socials and our YouTube channel, where you can listen and watch along with visual images. And if you're a fan of what you heard here, please like, share, follow, subscribe. I appreciate the support. I'll see you next time.